So we are 4 minutes past the hour. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining today. This is our fifth trailer talk. This will be the second time that I have hosted. So we're still learning here. You can see the technical difficulties that we have. But we really appreciate you taking the time today, and we're really excited for this one. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and I want to confirm everybody can see. All right. And everybody can see the presentation here for our Outbuild trailer talk.
We got some yeses.
All right, perfect. Beautiful. And so let me make sure this goes full screen for us. All right. So welcome to our fifth Outbuild trailer talk. We'll go ahead and set up some ground rules and then just jump into today's topic. But our topic is tips and tricks. So maybe there's some cool stuff in here that you haven't learned. Maybe there's a few aha moments or some wows. But it's also going to just cover some of the basics. And this is stuff that we see day in and day out. Our customer success team works with teams all across the country. In Canada, we have teams in the UK. We are growing and seeing a lot of the different approaches to scheduling. So we're going to just touch on some best practices and tips and tricks today, and make sure there's some features that maybe are a little bit hidden that you're aware of. So our agenda is our typical agenda here. We're going to do a round of intros. We'll hop into the presentation, do an Outbuild research and development slide that shows what's coming down our roadmap, and then open up to a Q&A session and our polls. Now, in regards to that Q&A session, we will have time allotted at the end. But considering the format of today's trailer talk, and it will be more of a workshop format, we highly invite any questions as we go. And as typical, we're going to shoot for 45 minutes here. I think we've got plenty of content. And if we have those questions come up, I think we're going to have plenty. Actually, we may not have enough time, but I think we'll have plenty of topics to cover here. Now, if this is your first trailer talk and maybe first time using Zoom, there are a few key buttons to be aware of, one of which is the chat button. Please feel invited to use that, but also be respectful here. This is an open forum. We love engaging with you. We love having you engage with each other, but we want to be sure that everybody maintains respect in this space. We also have a dedicated Q&A section. So if you really want to focus on, hey, I have a question, it allows us an opportunity to see those in a list format and then also answer them as we go. And then you can also raise your hand. And so we can allow you to speak at that time, or make any additional comments that you need. As I will be mainly focused on the presentation and the slides here, our team, Mike, Brittany, and Skylar will be handling the chats. So if there's anything that I don't address, I'm going to have these guys tell me to stop, shut up, and maybe answer a question or two. So, and I know they will. I would like to do a quick round of intros. Everybody here is going to have an opportunity to introduce themselves. You've probably heard us say this before, but if you haven't met us, we are the customer success team for Outbuild. My name is Ben. I am a success manager here. I've been here for 2 years now, a little bit over. I'm based out of Sacramento, California, but originally from Tennessee, where I worked with a general contractor for 3 years. Moved to California, worked with a framing and drywall company, actually where I met Mike Wong, and then moved into customer service and eventually found my way to Outbuild. So we all have a little bit of a background in construction, and we all know the software very well, so we're always happy to help. And then I'm going to hand it over to Brittany for her intro.
Thanks, Ben. My name's Brittany. Most of you all know me. You've been on all of our trailer talks. I won't say my whole life story again, but I am in Norfolk. I've been in Virginia Beach, Norfolk area most of my life. I worked as an office manager for a construction company, and then I moved on to being a project manager at ADP. I am also building up our Outbuild community. So if you have not already joined, please do so. I really want that to be a place where we can learn to know each other better, not just about the software, but each other, learn from each other's experiences. So I'll drop the link and I'm done plugging my community. So Skylar, if you want to introduce yourself. Oh, I went out of order. Sorry. Mike, do you want to go next?
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry. Go ahead, Skylar.
Hey guys, I basically have the same background as Brittany. I'm located in Virginia Beach. I worked in an office for a construction company, and then I also worked in customer success at ADP. And I'm the newest member, and you mostly, for now, recognize me from the chats. Thank you.
Skylar will be running her own trailer talk here shortly, though.
That's still debatable. We're talking about that one.
And last but not least, I'm Mike Wall. I'm head of customer success. I love this job. I love working with everybody in our company and working with all these teams that we have, all you lovely people that have decided to join us the last Wednesday of every month. We really appreciate the attention, and hopefully we can bring some value to this trailer talk. So take it away, Ben.
Awesome. Beautiful. So one more slide before we hop in, or two more slides rather. For everybody that is in the software, you hear us preach all the time. You have resources available to you. We are one of those resources. We also have a knowledge base. Brittany and Skylar have done an excellent job of getting that organized, putting in information that we see every day in the help chats. So be sure to use that. You can access it from Outbuild. And then there's also the help chat, that little chat icon that you'll see when you're in the software at any time. You can get directly to us. It'll shoot an article at you at first, say, hey, that didn't help, and you'll get directly to us. So, all right. So our presentation today is tips and tricks. And my first topic is going to be just maintaining a healthy schedule and what that looks like. And you can see I've got an image here of our analytics page, which we're not really going to focus on today. But if you follow these steps and this workflow, all of that information is going to trickle down to your analytics page. And so some of the topics I'm going to discuss when we open up Outbuild is, when do I save a baseline? Are my dates driven by logic, or am I hand picking those dates and putting them in there? What is my critical path? Is there enough space with my durations to have a connected look ahead? Do all of my parties have access to Outbuild? And are we committing work on a weekly basis? And so that's going to be our main focus in this topic. So I'm going to open up my Outbuild window, and I do want to confirm everybody here can see my Outbuild screen. All right, beautiful. So this is a typical schedule that you might see within Outbuild. Pretty basic. You've got a list of activities on the left, a Gantt chart on your right. The first topic I want to touch on is saving a baseline. And I want to open this up to the web chat or the Q&A, wherever you guys want to put this. Does anybody want to offer an answer to this question of, when do I save a baseline? Anybody want to put an answer out there? All right. Patrick, you've raised your hand. I can allow you to talk, I think. There we go. We're learning here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so to answer the question for us, and in my experience, is anytime there is what you would consider a major resequence of work that is deviating from the original baseline, then you would set a new baseline. Once the new plan is established, everybody's bought into the plan, everybody agrees on it, and then you set a new baseline to track from that point moving forward.
Yep. That's a great answer, Patrick. And I'm going to use that to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for participating.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm gonna backtrack from that even a little bit. And we've got some answers in the chats, but we want to save that initial baseline at the project start. That is, at that moment that we are awarded the project by the owner, they have seen a schedule, they've agreed upon a schedule. At a minimum, that is when we want to save that baseline. That is going to allow us a reference point from the beginning of the project of where things are deviating. So if we look at my schedule here, I can see the plus days, the minus days, and that is simply referencing my baseline to this schedule. Now, to Patrick's point, we started taking a little bit more advanced route, and that is when there is a large deviation or maybe a contract change that we would want to save a new baseline. So that could be at any moment in the schedule where there's some additional scope, there is a change order added, there is that new moment in time where we are in agreement with the owner, we have reset expectations, and there is now a new end date and therefore a new baseline to our schedule. And so just to cover the two basic types of baselines that we see is within Outbuild here, I have my saved baselines. I can see my current baseline that I have saved, and I can always create a new baseline. So to my first point, we have a baseline for our entire project. So that is at the project start when we have finished building that schedule. To Patrick's point, and to what I was discussing a little bit further, we have our current baseline plus new activities. So what that does is maintain your current baseline and allow you to add a baseline to any additional activities that you've added to your schedule. And so that is when you've added that additional scope, you have a change order, you have a resequencing, anything like that. So that's really what we're focused on there with the baseline. Again, this is a little bit different format. Are there any questions or thoughts about baselines before we move on? All right, perfect. So the next topic I want to talk about is using logic in our schedule. So we do see this often, that a lot of times when a schedule is being built, that maybe dates are manually put in. And there's nothing wrong with that, so to speak, but it does make your job harder. And what we want to try to establish is A, making scheduling easier and allowing you to establish a critical path. I'm gonna backtrack here. We've got a question about the baseline. Can we revert the schedule to a previous baseline? The baseline simply is a reference point. It is not a restore point. So you cannot necessarily revert the schedule back to that, but I can see, based off my baseline, I am a day behind. If I want to, quote, restore back to that, I could manually change those durations or those dates so that it aligns with my baseline. Does that answer your question, Orlando? Awesome, beautiful. Okay, so take another step into our predecessors and successors. And again, this is where we automate movement within our schedule. So you can see that all of these activities here are connected to each other. So if I make one movement here, it moves everything else with it, and that makes my job easier. So we want to be sure that we're always providing predecessors and successors to all activities in our schedule. We need to, and we need to establish that there is a sequence of activities that must occur for work to be complete. And so if we don't do that, and I come in here to my interior work, and I have just manually set all of these dates, and now my MEP rough end pushes, I can capture that, but you can see that nothing else moves. And so now it allows for a little bit more human error. I can go in there and say, okay, well then restroom specialties moves, and then control room moves. And I have to manually go in there. It's very tedious, very time consuming, and it allows for a lot more opportunity for mistakes. So we want to avoid that at all costs. So another piece of a healthy schedule is making sure everything is tied logically. And then something else you'll see us talk about is the level of detail within your master schedule. And that is because we are the only solution out there that has a connected look ahead. Taylor Mokate asked the question, does Outbuild have a limit to how many baselines you can save? No, there is no limit to that. You can save as many baselines as you need. To take that a step further, you can even use those as a reference point for when you're building a schedule. And if you want to talk more about that, we can certainly sidebar so that you can get some other tips and tricks on that. I see that Patrick has his hand raised, so I'm going to unmute him here. If it allows me. And it's allowed me to ask to unmute. It's not allowing me to unmute you, unfortunately, Patrick. Or if you want to type it in the webinar chat, we can get you there.
It worked a second ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunately not going to allow me to unmute you, Patrick. Fun stuff. Sorry about that, Patrick. But yeah, if you want to put it in the web chat, we'll be happy to answer that there.
Maybe it's an only one question ask and then Zoom cuts you off.
I guess so. Yeah.
Thanks,
Well,
thanks, Patrick, for doing that though. I appreciate you speaking to everybody.
Yes, Patrick makes a really good point here. So when I was moving these activities for my example here, he talked about constraint types. So by default, all activities are going to have a constraint type of as soon as possible. If I go in here and change that activity manually, it's going to apply a constraint of start no earlier than. Same goes if I change the date here. It is going to apply a constraint. So that is one of the technical sides of any scheduling software. To hold that date, they must apply a constraint. And so again, those can be beneficial, but it can limit the way your logic behaves. And so we preach, at least at the beginning, establish predecessors and successors. That way you have that automation of movement. And then if you do, in fact, have a delivery or some owner equipment that must occur on a certain day, or a school closes down on a certain day so you can start your renovation, you can use those constraints there. Awesome. Another piece of creating predecessors and successors is going to allow us to visualize our critical path. So now I can see what activities are going to drive my end date. That is a really important piece of this. So now I see I've got a little bit of movement with MEP rough in. If that deviates some, we're going to be okay. But as soon as one of these red activities moves, that is going to push our end date and make it much more difficult to manage, our end date for our schedule. Another part of a healthy schedule and something that is unique to us is making sure that everybody has access to the schedule. So we're gonna transition a little bit into user management. Any other questions about linking activities, critical path, or baseline? All right, perfect. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about assigning the right parties to our schedule. So now it's not just me maintaining a master schedule. We got a question from Josh here. Can we get the constraint type put on the activity card with the predecessor and successors? We do have a ticket in for that. I apologize if you've heard that answer before. Our team does help prioritize those tickets from feedback we receive. And then our product team prioritizes their roadmap and align it with some of those bigger picture items. Know that all four of us here are all in agreement that that constraint type should be listed there. And I know that it has been elevated in priority, but I don't think that it is a top priority right now. So we don't have a timeline. But just know that one day, maybe Christmas, you'll wake up and next to the Christmas tree, you'll have that constraint type in the activity card. So
The one thing we do want to prioritize is bulk action for constraint type changing. Because then even if it doesn't show up in the activity card, a lot of users have requested, I've been working on the schedule for a long time. I moved some items by hand. They all got locked to start them earlier than, how do I change them quickly? Right now there isn't. There's no quick way to do it. You have to actually go and click and change it to as soon as possible or another constraint. We're going to bulk action that as a feature first. Too.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to start moving quickly, but please stop and ask any questions that you have, because I do have some other great topics I want to focus on. So let's talk a little bit about user management. Again, part of having a healthy schedule is having more eyes on it, is having that collaborative nature. We haven't even talked about the look ahead yet, but for anybody that's here, you know we have a connected look ahead. We know that is the collaborative piece of the software. So I want to go up to my settings. And I specifically want to go to my project settings. So under user settings, I go to project settings. I can go to my users. And then this is where I manage who has access to my schedule. And if I need to invite any new users to Outbuild. So the first step that you can take, if you know that somebody does not have access to Outbuild, you can create them as a user. So it is as simple as putting their email in, assigning them a role, and we'll go over that here in a moment, and then assigning them to a company. So for anybody that's a little bit newer to Outbuild, this is going to be your own company. This is going to be internal. You may not be at that point where you're ready to invite subcontractors and project partners to your schedule. So you come in, you assign it to your company and create them as a user. For anybody that is already within Outbuild and they're working on their own project right now, but they're going to be working on yours, you can go to assign users. And now I can scroll through here and I can see, okay, we've got Bob from our landscaping company. I'm going to add him to this project. I need somebody from my flooring company. I add them and it's going to assign them to my project. So this is where you bring in your superintendent, your foreman, anybody else internally that's going to be working on your project. And then you can always access the user permission information with this little info button next to create user. So we won't go into detail on this today, but you can see our matrix that defines what every single user can do. In short, the first four are internal. The last four move outside of your organization. So focus on those first four, and then later on, you'll adventure to project partner, last planner, owners. Perfect. Now, I want to transition to our next topic within our tips and tricks today. But are there any other questions on establishing a healthy schedule? So having a baseline, linking activities, viewing and defining our critical path, and making sure that everybody that is on the project has access to it. Those are really some of the four foundational pieces that you're going to need. All right, perfect. So our next topic is going to be tracking delays and how we can do that within Outbuild. We got a question from Jesse Taylor. What is the schedule update button used for? That button is dedicated to pushing your schedule to Procore. So the question here is, what does this button do? That schedule update button is when we push to Procore. Awesome. Good question, Jesse. All right, so our next topic is going to be tracking delays. And so when we're tracking a delay, we want to be able to create a story. We want to have as much information as possible. So the way that we like to start with that in a perfect world within Outbuild is by creating a roadblock. So we get to that level where we have a schedule, a look ahead, and we are defining those what could go wrong scenarios. We're looking ahead, we're defining the potential issues. From there, we're trying to remove them. If not, then that moves our schedule, that impacts, moves our look ahead and impacts our master schedule. The same goes for committing weekly work plans, looking back and evaluating those reasons for variance. And then we can tag those delays by type, and we can also hyperlink documentation to those delays. So I want to show what that process can look like within Outbuild. All right, so we have our master schedule open. We're managing it. Everybody's in agreement with where we need to be, where we're at. And so we go from our schedule to our look ahead, which is where our superintendent teams take those activities and plan them out in more detail. So you've heard me say this a million times. In your master schedule, you have an activity, you have a long duration. It is a broad duration and a broad scope. So I would even say this could be stud framing and drywall, beyond just metal stud framing. But now within the look ahead, which is our internal document, that is where we plan that out in more detail. So we put in our deliveries, our bottom track, our top track, studs, door frames, all of that detail that we need to establish our work. And then that allows us the bandwidth to say, okay, what are my potential issues? We go in here, we mark them with a roadblock. And then as we establish more and more roadblocks, we are able to manage them within this roadblocks log. This allows me to establish priority on what do I need to remove first. And for me, I have 2 roadblocks that are expired. Those are going to be the first ones that I remove. Now, unfortunately, we all know the nature of this business. We can look ahead, we can establish a roadblock, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't get removed. We are unable to remove it from being an issue, and it causes a push in our look ahead. So these tasks move out, these roadblocks are not removed, and now we have tasks that are outside our scheduled end date. We submit that modification request. We put in a valuable reason why, something that truly tells a story. We submit it, and then we can view that in our master schedule. So that is one way that we tell the story of a delay in our schedule. So we've established a roadblock. We tried to remove it, but unfortunately failed. And then ultimately it pushes our schedule out through that modification request. And you can see in my previous example of our schedule here, I do have that modification request for one side drywall. It pushed out by 5 days. The inspector can't be on site till July 8th due to Independence Day. So I submitted that modification request. I accepted it. And now I have a ton of information that I can pull from. I have this modification panel where I can see all of my approved modification requests. But I can take that a step further. Now I can use my tags column to establish what type of delay was it. So this was a city delay. The inspector could not get on site. And then I can also turn on my description column and hyperlink to a document in Procore, hyperlink to a document in Google Drive, anywhere that can have a live URL. You can put that there, or even simply just type in a note, weather impact for 2 days, whatever it might be. So you have a lot of ways that you can establish, what the cause was and some backup for it. So that way, when you're having those conversations with an owner, or a year has passed and you're wondering why that one side drywall took extra time, you know exactly why. Are there any questions on this portion of the delay piece? Right. Maybe somebody's typing, but I'm going to keep moving forward. Now, there is also another way that we do commonly see a delay being shown in the schedule, and that is simply by adding a line item. So maybe it is between one side drywall and our, MEP rough-ins. And so what I can do, and I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but you can float your cursor between two activities and just use this green line to insert a new activity. So you can see I've inserted a few activities here, and I'm going to name it delay due to RFI number 23. And that was actually a 12-day delay. And then I can even tie that in logically. And that's going to push out my schedule. And we can very clearly see that duration there. So depending on how your owner wants to see it or have backup or documentation, you have a lot of different ways you can show it. I've got a line item. I can come in here and tag it. It's a design delay. And again, I can put in any note or hyperlink any information that I might need. So just be aware you have those columns available to you. And again, anytime you print in Outbuild, any columns you have turned on, any information that you're showing on your screen will show up in that export. Any questions on tracking or visualizing delays? All right, perfect. So the final piece I'd like to touch on today is establishing templates within Outbuild. And so a lot of you probably have heard us talk about cloning a schedule, how you can use that to make what if scenarios, how you can use it as a template, how you can use it in any number of ways. And so I do want to just highlight some features that might be a little bit less known, but you can customize what you are cloning over. And you can also set up a project as a master template project. And so the first piece I'll touch on here is just customizing what you're exporting or what you're cloning. So again, you can use this drop down to see a list of schedules that you have. You hit the 3 dots, you hit clone. And what we see a lot of times is that everybody copies everything, but just know I can customize this and I can say, well, I want to bring over dependencies. I want to bring over my companies, and I'm not worried about baselines. I'm not worried about descriptions. And I actually had a really good look ahead. So I'm going to bring over those look ahead tasks and clone that schedule. And then it's going to only bring over that information. So now there's no progress, there's no baseline. I can very easily go into that schedule and start making changes that I need to. So now, we've got our look ahead items in there. We've got all this information, but I've got a new start date for this project. Obviously, it's going to start in, April. I can bump that, and now we can have a little bit more accurate schedule, start changing duration, start managing our look ahead. The other side of using cloning as a template or as a, get started quickly tool is setting up a project that maybe again is called template project or master template, whatever you'd like to call it. And then simply building out your calendar fully. So we do have this question a lot of how do I copy over a calendar, or how do I make a template of a calendar? And right now the solution is to create a basic schedule. So literally no activity names or durations, but then going into your settings and your calendar settings and setting up any optional calendars you might need. as well as making sure you've established all of your standard holidays, maybe over a 3, 4, or 5 year period. That way, I can always just take this blank template and I can say, okay, this is my starting point. I'm going to go put that over, in Ben's demo project over here and clone it. And now I've got a really good place to start. So that's really going to help you guys get started more quickly, and allow you to dodge maybe some of that human error of, oops, I forgot to add in holidays. Oops, I forgot to add in these optional calendars. So these are all set up in an effort to make your lives a little bit easier. And we have 5 more minutes here, and I'm not surprised I've talked too much. I've certainly not gone as in depth as I would have liked to, but I would like to offer up any questions that we might have right now. Going once, going twice. Don't be shy, guys. Can we pull out clones into the main dashboard as a separate project? Good question. At this point, it is only the schedule. It is not a whole project. Does that hopefully answer your question, Justin? And that might be some feedback we can use for, cloning a whole project in the future. Awesome. And then we've got another question here. Are there options coming to modify the footer? So that is a good question. That is a topic we're starting to see more and more is, what customization do I have in my PDF exportable, whether that is the master schedule or the look ahead. That is certainly something we are exploring, is the ability to make some more adjustments to the footer of those exportables. And that'll be something that we hopefully see, by the end of this year, without having, a direct line with my product team right now. I don't want to commit them to a timeline.
I think a good version 1 of that would be just to remove it, to have an option of not showing the legend instead of trying to customize to what everybody wants as a start.
Yep. And then we are going to run a poll here on trailer talk topics.
That I can answer your question about users. So we're project-based, not user-based. So once you have a project, whether it's the GC that pays for it, or you put that in your GCs and send that to your owner to pay for it too, the project's open to anybody. So you can have 1,000 people invited. It doesn't cost you a penny more. So they don't all need to be paying customers about they'll get access.
Kyle, or go ahead, Brittany.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Kyle. I see your question about the standard company-wide calendars. That is one of those things that has been submitted. But right now we have a workaround with the cloning feature that Ben explained. So it's something that we do have kind of an interim solution for. So it hasn't been a top priority, but it has been requested before. So we do have that submitted, just not exactly on our roadmap just yet.
And then a question about how do you add hyperlinks? Just copy and paste? Yes, it is as simple as that. You copy. One thing to take note of is right now, to paste it, you have to right click and paste. If you try to use the shortcut, the software thinks you're trying to paste whole activities. So just be aware of that. And then we've got about 2 more minutes here. Feel free to keep those questions coming in, but I am going to launch our poll for our next trailer talk topic. And so I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen in today. Hopefully this wasn't too redundant. Hopefully you learned a few tidbits of knowledge of best ways to use Outbuild. We're looking forward to having more and more conversations like this as we implement more improvements and features. But I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll here and allow everybody a few moments to answer what they'd like to see in our next trailer talk.
I hate how it says hosts and panelists can't vote.
That's
Guys.
I want to vote. Ben bits of knowledge. Oh, I like that, Taylor.
Taylor's always got witty remarks.
Sometimes I feel like my brain has been bits.
Beep boop, beep boop, beep boop.
Beep, boop, boop.
What's winning so far, Ben?
Oh, you guys don't get to see this. Right now it's managing submittals.
Ah, perfect.
Nice.
I don't know if I should say that out loud because then everybody's like, oh, well, let's go vote for the other.
No, that is a good one, because when we do get into that in training, there's always a lot of questions of like, how do I set that up correctly? When do I, do I connect all my submittals? There's lots of extra tips and best practices that we can provide for that as well. It's a very powerful tool, just because you can, instead of having a huge part of your schedule dedicated to tracking pre-construction submittals and design review and all this other stuff, you can have it already connected to your Procore, and it just goes straight to your construction activities.
Seth says there wasn't an all of the above option. We're watching out for you, Seth.
Hey, every month
like
we're on 5 already. We got what, 6 more months left in the year plus.
And that is the thing. We've really enjoyed doing these. We're going to continue to do them. Might have a poll next time of how long should these things be? Because I feel like we got a lot of really good engagement, and maybe we need a little bit more time. I know 45 minutes is a good kind of time span for attention, but I can certainly keep talking. Clearly.
Everybody's got in and stayed in, was watching the attendees. So
yeah,
you guys all. And
I also let's go 60. There we go.
Yeah, we'll hang out until you guys stop asking questions. So
yeah. Okay. And yeah, we're getting some good feedback here. So if it does feel too short, just put that here in this chat. Because we try to cover a lot, but we want to be sure that you're getting that value and that it is quality. And sometimes we can allow more quality with more time.
It's better than if we asked, hey, do we think this is long enough? And then there's no answer, or it's like, no, it's good. It's probably a bit too long.
Kyle, it sounds like you're saying everybody has to wear a beard. Is that that's what I'm hearing? If you're presenting, you have to wear a beard. So Brittany, Skylar.
That would be a good open. All of us put a beard on.
Oh, I'm dying. Beard is the boss. Last thing I will mention about the community, there was a lot of mentions of feature requests in this chat today. We do have an R&D plus me section in that community. I know Patrick and a few others have already been active in that discussion. The more upvotes we get on posts, the more backing we have to make that a priority in our roadmap. So get in there and put those requests in there.
Awesome. Well, if anybody needs more time to answer the poll, feel free. But we are wrapping things up here. Beardo could be a new nickname.
This has turned into
I'm a Beardo. But truly appreciate everybody's time today. Scheduling is a complicated business. Learning a new software can be a complicated business. We truly appreciate your faith in us. And again, we are your resource. Use us. Do not hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much for the kind words, everybody. That's all that we have for today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And thank you for your answers on the poll. And we're going to wrap things up. So we will see you next time, okay?